never cruel nor cowardly, never give up, never give in. This is the officially unofficial Geek channel's main event, and I am your host, as always, Carrie Quinn. And this week we are going to defend the Timeless Child storyline of Doctor Who. Woo! Time to get into it, guys. Okay, so here's the deal. If you have not watched the most recent season or series, depending on how you refer to it, of Doctor Who, you probably do not want to watch most of this episode. Now, I'm going to talk about, some other stuff first, and then I'll get into it. I'm going to give you guys, this is your official spoiler warning, pre-warning. I'll get into it more in a bit. But for now, this is your pre-warning. I'm going to give you the ultimate spoiler warning when we get there. But I wanted to do the Timeless Child storyline of Doctor Who. I wanted to do another Doctor Who story, another Doctor Who episode, as I did one early on when it was a podcast, when we were doing this as a podcast, and it was mostly just the overview of the so many episodes to make a Whovian, using episodes from the new Who time period from number 9 on. So I have been a fan of Doctor Who for quite some time. I started watching during David Tennant's era, and I went back and watched a number of episodes from the classic era, and I've also watched basically everything I could get my hands on from number 9 to present day. So, would I say I'm an expert? No. I might be, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I wouldn't go as far as to say I'm an expert. Probably an expert compared to other people, but I am just a mega big fan of Doctor Who, so that's why I'm going to talk about it. I talked about other stuff here, and you know what? Let's get right down to it. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty of what makes me a big old geek, and that would be Doctor Who. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be defending the Timeless Child storyline from the most recent season of Doctor Who, and we'll get to that in a moment. But first, something I'd like to do here on the show is I want to do the whole, but first, what have I been consuming lately? So right now I'm going to talk to you about what I've been reading. Okay, so other than my normal, as you guys can see, round upon round upon round about of comics, actual comic issues, I have been taking on a lot of comic trades, and the last time I did a main event video, I believe I was talking about how I was reading the Joker War Saga, and I finished it. I finally finished it. And I will do a review video of that one for you guys at some point. At some point, I will. I have been going on quite a happy little tirade involving buying comic trade books, because now I'm into it now, and I'm like, I need to consume. And I think I have a problem, but you know what? It's a happy problem. As long as I don't go broke. But, I usually try to reel myself in before that kind of thing happens. Whether I do it well or not remains to be seen. So we're working on trying to read all the things that I've gotten lately, and dear God, it's been a lot. But like I said, I finished the Joker War. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Joker War Saga hardcover was great. And I'll get into that more in an actual review video of the piece. Okay, so I did read this one. This is the Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy by Jody Hauser and Adriana Mello. I hope I'm pronouncing those correctly. Just to kind of give you an idea, let me see if I can get a publication date here somewhere. The copyright date. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying. Okay. Okay, so we have the original copyright of the Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy series 1 through 6, because this is 6 issues that are in this book, and that was in 2019, 2020. Copyright of this compilation, 2020. So basically, this takes place after Heroes in Crisis, which is another trade that I ended up picking up because of this one. And I actually finished this like all in one day. So good. So happy with it. It was really great. I really enjoyed it. And of course, I will try to pull my shit together and do an issue with that one, a video with that one as soon as possible. So what I'm currently reading, oh God, guys, this is really cool so far. This is Old Lady Harley by Frank Thierry and Anika Miranda. I hope, of course, I am pronouncing those correctly. Let's see here. The copyright on this one. Let's see if I can get you a copyright on this one. On right here. Okay. This is a copyright of 20 of the original issues were 2018 and 2019. The compilation was 2019. It's really interesting. It's kind of like so far it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic kind of romp with Harley. Kind of like, I'm kind of seeing inspirations from there's no kind of about it. I'm definitely seeing inspirations from other stories. And it's really coming together in a really nice package. I'm really enjoying it. It's really good. And of course, if I can get my shit together and read in all the trades I've been reading and do videos on all of them, I will. That's what I've been reading lately. Excuse me. What have I been listening to lately? I've been listening, of course, to a lot of podcasts, usually about true crime. One of my favorites is My Favorite Murder. Been listening to that more. And that's one of those things where it's like I go through periods where I'm like really religiously listening to it, and right now lately it's been helping me focus with work. So I've been listening to it quite regularly. And I've also started listening to a podcast pretty regularly called Turned Out a Punk. It's this guy that interviews different people from the punk community or have been involved in the punk community and talks to them about like the history of punk. It's really cool. Music, like the culture and everything. Now, music-wise, I've really been getting into the last couple days of listening to Lizzo a lot in the last couple weeks. Megan Thee Stallion, I've been really getting into that, and I have to say they are just like really cool, and I love listening to them, especially Lizzo, which is kind of like she has this positivity about her where, it's like it builds people up. Some of her music is just like really like build yourself up, get your hair done, do your nails, and all that. It's really cool, and I'm really appreciating it and how it makes me feel when I listen to it. What have I been watching? Let's see here. I have been watching the show Rebel on ABC. And it's a few episodes in, and I'm really enjoying it. It really tugged on my heartstrings, this most recent episode. Andy Garcia's in it. Tugged on my heartstrings completely. Rebel is character played by Katie Seagal, whom you will know as she was in Sons of Anarchy. She was in Eight Simple Rules to Date My Teenage Daughter. And she was Peg Bundy. So if you don't know her by anything else, you probably know her by Peg Bundy. So that's really good, and it's a show that is kind of like loosely based on the life of Aaron Brockovich. So if you enjoyed watching the movie Aaron Brockovich, you probably enjoy watching Rebel. If you enjoy people fighting the good fight, you're probably going to enjoy Rebel. It's been really good. I've been watching various YouTubers, especially, YouTubers that kind of talk about like comic history, Casually Comics. I've been watching a lot of her. Jen Mint is really good and really interesting sometimes. I obviously just finished Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you have not watched it yet and you were waiting to get Disney Plus just to watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier and then cut it off, now's the time. If you were looking to binge it, now's the time. Go ahead, get that Disney Plus, binge that show, and then you can be done with that. And then you can go back to, I know some people just kind of jump between the services, and that's completely fine. You pay your month, you binge your show, you get out of it, you go on to a different one. It happens all the time. I've done it. Everybody does it from time to time. Except for me, Disney Plus is pretty much just a given all the time because we live in a very heavy Star Wars household. So, when we have people in the household that watch Star Wars very regularly, like myself and mostly my boyfriend, we just keep Disney Plus. It's not one of the ones that we get rid of very much. So we just keep it. It's just always there. The other one's just always there is HBO Max, because one, there's a lot of really cool stuff on HBO Max, and two, because one of those really cool things is Doctor Who. Doctor Who, if you haven't watched the most recent season of Doctor Who, it's on HBO Max already. So if you want to binge it and maybe watch some other stuff from like past seasons or what have you, you can get HBO Max. It's like $15 for a month. You can binge that, binge anything else you want to watch from TCM or anything like that they've partnered with HBO Max. Rewatch a couple episodes of Sex in the City. Who cares? You got it for a month. You're paying $15. Go for it. But it's on there. Get in there, watch it, and then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And then you can come back and you can watch this episode of the main event again and watch the part that you had to miss before because you didn't want to hear about the Timeless Child and be spoiled. Which, okay, guys, this is time. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get into it. We're going to get into the Timeless Child in Doctor Who. I'm going to tell you right now, here's the time. If you have not watched the most recent season of Doctor Who, if you do mind spoilers, please stop the video, come back and watch us after you've watched it. If you don't mind spoilers, if you don't mind it getting ruined for you, or if you've already seen it, or if you have no idea who this fucking Doctor Who thing is, but you've heard of it, stick around. Yeah. So, we're going to go ahead and we are going to talk about the Timeless Child. Sorry guys, I had to pause that recording for a moment. If you're like me and you live with allergies, you understand how I feel. So if you hear the sniffling, that's what it is. I'm not getting high on cocaine. Yet. Ever. God, I don't do it. Mom, if you're watching, I don't do cocaine. Yes. Let's... Alright. So, the Timeless Child. Here we go. Okay, so a lot of the criticism of the Timeless Child is that it just kind of appears out of nowhere. and retcons the traditional structure of Doctor Who, and that there is nothing backing up this incarnation at all. Okay. So, retcon is defined by Wikipedia in this way. Retroactive continuity, and I'm quoting here, okay, guys, just so you know. There's going to be a number of quotes that I'm just going to read out just to make sure that, because this is kind of a complicated idea here, I want to make sure that I'm getting you all the information exactly how it appears in Doctor Who, exactly, correctly. Don't want to fuck up. This is the doctor, by the way. So, retroactive continuity, this is the quote from Wikipedia, or retcon for short, is a literary device in which established diegetic facts in the plot of a fictional work are adjusted, ignored, or contradicted by subsequently published work which breaks continuity with the former. Okay, end quote. The problem with using this to define anything related to Doctor Who, and I get the concept of what retcon means and what retcon, retroactive continuity means. I get it, okay? The problem with using this to define anything related to Doctor Who is that the show, by its very convention, can only be retconned in very specific ways. The Doctor is literally a time-traveling Time Lord that travels through space and time, constantly warning about the rules of time travel and how you can never alter previous events, yet, however, is always breaking that rule with some workaround. That's basically the description of Doctor Who. In a nutshell. That's it. Okay? This is a concept that Stephen Moffat explores in the Crack in Time and Space storyline, in which, from his time as a showrunner of Doctor Who, this is where there's a whole order of beings that formed a religious movement referred to as the Silence that believes that the Doctor meddling in time has caused this crack in space and time, where if you fall through the crack in space and time, you cease to exist, which does get, talked about in Doctor Who. Does get explained, there's example of this, especially in when Rory falls through the crack in time and space and he ceases to exist, and the only person that remembers Rory is the Doctor. So that's that. Also, by using the term retcon or retroactive continuity, one would have to, by definition, not be able to find reason from previous history of published work for the new development to occur. That's at least the way I view it. Maybe you don't view it that way. This is just all my opinion. The defense of the Timeless Child is all my opinion. It's all my opinion based on what I'm seeing, what I'm reading, what I experienced. Just so you know. And we'll dive more into that, concept a little bit later. Let me just tell you that in short, there exists reason to accept the idea of the Timeless Child as a non-retcon tale, because this has been hinted at for years. And I do mean years. Okay? So, first off, what is the Timeless Child? Well, allow me to explain. For those of you that haven't watched Doctor Who, or didn't care about getting spoiled with the most recent season of Doctor Who, you're going to need me to explain who the Timeless Child is. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take quotes, really long explanation from the tardis.fandom.com/wiki/timeless-child site, because, like I said, I gotta make sure I get this right. And this is one of the best explanations of the Timeless Child. Okay? Now, just to give you an idea, here it is, and I quote, "The Timeless Child was the title used to refer to the mysterious being from whom, across several regenerations, Tecteun extracted the secret of regeneration. According to the Master, the Timeless Child's incarnations were none other than the original incarnations of the Doctor. Long before the first Doctor, according to the Master, the founding fathers of Gallifrey built Time Lord society on a lie regarding the Timeless Child. This was buried deep within all Time Lords, in the form of repressed thoughts and memories, hidden but integral to their identities." He later explained upon this, stating that an individual known as the Timeless Child was discovered and whose ability to regenerate was written into the genetic code of Time Lords. This history was subsequently hidden, with another explanation, a lie, being given to this ability instead. The Timeless Child was eventually revealed by the Master to be a child discovered on another planet who had the ability to regenerate and had come through a gateway from another universe or dimension. The child was adopted by Tecteun, who discovered her power to regenerate after she suffered a fatal fall from a cliff, leading to Tecteun studying the child's power for a number of years and regenerations. Tecteun was eventually able to replicate the regenerative ability for herself and eventually spread it to the other Time Lords, though they limited their number of regenerations to 12. In the process, the Timeless Child became the genetic template upon which all Time Lords gained their regenerative powers, in effect meaning that that a piece of the child is in each Time Lord. Tecteun and the child were Tecteun and the child were inducted into a clandestine organization called the Division, led by a Time Lord called Silpado, whose job it was to intervene in time when necessary. After being tested, the results came back saying that they were the best Division had ever seen. So Tecteun and the Doctor, the Timeless Child, were a part of the Division. Okay, carrying on. The Master revealed to the Doctor that the Timeless Child was in fact the Doctor themselves, who apparently had their memories redacted. This was the Master's reason for why he ravaged Gallifrey. Yeah, he ravaged Gallifrey. Yeah, he destroyed, everyone, killed everyone in Gallifrey. Excuse me, I need to take a drink. Cherry Dr. Pepper, yum. Reason he ravaged Gallifrey, anger in the fact that every Time Lord, including him, had a piece of the Doctor in them. In addition, large portions of the Matrix on Gallifrey pertaining to the life of the Timeless Child were also redacted beyond even the Master's ability to recover it. However, Tecteun hid some of the truth in the Matrix in the form of a story of Brendan, an immortal Irish policeman. The Master suggested that this was an attempt by Tecteun to apologize, or possibly a gift meant to help her child one day decode the truth about their existence. End quote. Okay. So that's a lot to unload. But if you're already familiar, I think you were able to follow what I just said, I would assume. So if you were able to follow, then you understand basically what's going on here. So, is the Doctor the Timeless Child? I thought about doing this episode without giving my personal opinion, but I thought about it. And if I'm going to be doing this, with the concept of it being the defense of the Timeless Child, I should really admit my position. The Doctor is the Timeless Child, and it absolutely does make sense. And I'm going to tell you why. So, let's dive in, shall we? No dipping the toe to test the temperature. Just jump in and get your fucking hair wet because I got you, boo. All right. We have to first start with the concept of the three founders of Time Lord Society, Omega, Rassilon, and the Other. Omega and Rassilon are pretty well fleshed out in Doctor Who mythos and published materials. Even the idea of Rassilon comes up pretty frequently as the leader of the Time Lords, and that acts like a micromanaging leader, constantly on everyone's case. But the Other is a little bit fuzzier. Now, I need to first dissect who Rassilon is. Pure and simple, I think, my opinion, Tatooine is Rassilon. Why? Well, it's like this. A few times, there is a few times where we get it hinted that the Other is actually the Doctor, and in Lombaro by Mark Platt, this is a novelization of one of the shows. The following is said about the relationship between the Rassilon and the Other, that basically the Rassilon came across the Other in a way that he acquired him, or what was given in a way is it's not completely explainable. They think that maybe it was a gift from something that's not explainable, but it was basically like, yeah, Rassilon found the Other. Excuse me. Rassilon is one of the founders of Time Lord Society, and tying the story of Tatooine with that of Rassilon is logical, considering it was her scientific research of travel and coming across a timeless child. That is how the Time Lords eventually came to being. So you have Gallifreyans and you have Time Lords. Time Lords are Gallifreyans. Gallifreyans aren't necessarily Time Lords. Okay? So, and if you recall, Tatooine found the timeless child on her journeys. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's define the Other. Okay, so they are a co-founder of Time Lord Society, as mentioned previously, and are not known by name. Only simply as they're not known by name. They're only simply known as the Other. Wow. A major player that in the story that is only referred to as the Other, and nobody really knows their real name. Sound like anyone we know? Well, where did this come from? Now, a lot of this is figured out in the novelization of Remembrance of the Daleks, which shows flashbacks that refers to the history of the Other. Remembrance of the Daleks took place during the Seventh Doctor's Sylvester McCoy's run, which, side note, I know everyone totes prefers Tom Baker as their favorite classic Doctor, and he is certainly wonderful. But for me, it's number 7, Sylvester McCoy, all the way. He's the classic Doctor for me. Anyways, way back in way back in the day, okay, so Gallifrey was run by this cult called the Cult Pythia. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But at some point, the three founders of society, Omega, Rassilon, and the Other, take over from this group. It bears mentioning that at this time that there was a festival celebrating the Other, and this is afterwards, there's a festival celebrating the Other and their power and their vast contribution to Time Lord Society. This happens later on. And supposedly it falls on the Doctor's name day every year. I'm going to just have a Chandler Bean moment here and say, could we be any more obvious? So Pythia was pissed that she got overthrown, and she put out a spell or a curse that basically made all of Gallifreyans unable to produce offsprings. So in other words, everybody's shooting blanks, baby. Okay? In order to combat this, Raslan supposedly just created a mad knitting machine, or what have you, to create more Time Lords out of genetic material they had. Wait, doesn't this sound like it has a connection to what we've already talked about? Tectuine changed the DNA and genetic material of the Time Lords by harnessing the regeneration ability of the Timeless Child. So, what if all of this is some odd mythology story clouded in symbolism in the Doctor Who mythos? What if this was the plan to reveal to us all along in some way? We'll get back to that in a minute or so. So, Omega is killed while working to create what seems like the time vortex, like or maybe the tempered schism, as referred to, that young Gallifreyans have to stare into when they hit the academy. And supposedly there was some major jealousy stuff going on there, because of the rumor that Raslan may have allowed Omega to be There's also some rumor going around that Raslan may have allowed Omega to die. So the other just feels like they have to watch their back a bit, you know. The other is aware of this whole thing, and they're very apprehensive of Raslan. So, okay, so in my research, I used a lot of fan wikis and Wikipedia, and to make sure I get this next part right, I'm just going to go ahead and quote the source again, that Wikipedia entry, to make sure I am presenting it right, because I think there's more of that fable-based mythos stuff that definitely involves having the comprehension to read between the lines. So give me a second. I'm going to take a drink, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell you the quote. Okay. Let me bring up my notes here so I can read it really well. Okay. So the quote, here we go. The other first ensured that his granddaughter, Susan, the last child to be naturally born on Gallifrey, was safe, sending her to the spaceport to get off the planet. Then, in a last gesture of defiance against Raslan's rule, he committed suicide by throwing himself into the looms, mixing his genetic material into the banks. Eons pass, and the looms become integrated into the great houses of Gallifrey. Eventually, a new cousin was born into the House of Lombaro, who would be known as the Doctor. Disenchanted with Time Lord society, the Doctor stole a TARDIS, intending to explore the universe. However, inside, he discovered the hand of Omega, the stellar manipulator Omega had used to create the Eye of Harmony, had followed him on board, somehow recognizing him as one of its creators. Although time travel into Gallifrey's past was strictly forbidden, the hand overrode the locks that prevented the TARDIS from doing so, and took the Doctor back to the old time. Still continuing the quote here. There, a year after the other had vanished into the looms, the Doctor found Susan wandering the streets of the city. She had never made it to the spaceport. Like the hand, although the Doctor did not look anything like the other, Susan recognized that there was a connection. And when she addressed him as grandfather, both of them knew something right. It was something right. The implication being that the other had been genetically reincarnated as the Doctor, although how much of the other is in the Doctor and how much he remembers of his past life, if at all, is unclear. Susan and the Doctor then left in the TARDIS to travel through space and time. End quote. Okay. So, it's unclear in that text how much the Doctor is associated with the other. You do have a definite association, but you have a feeling from the last, um, you have a feeling that Susan, knowing that the Doctor is her grandfather, the other, and all that, well, why would she feel that way? Um, she isn't said to walk around calling anyone born out of the looms her grandfather, so, and how exactly much of the story is actual, factual as it pertains to this story, and how much is it fable within the fiction? Exactly how far does the other influence the Doctor, or even the other way around? So as the story of the Timeless Child goes, Tatooine happened upon the child in her travels, and when the child showed a way to cheat death with regeneration, she experimented on the child and until she could harness the gene information that give that power and ability to all Gallifreyans. Soon, that info was used to make all Time Lords, all Gallifreyans that became Time Lords, able to regenerate where they could not before. Basically, the genetic material that was naturally a part of the Doctor was engineered to add to the genetic makeup of all that which the Time Lords came from. Wow. And if we are able to accept that any part of the story of the other happens to be in vogue, the idea of the Timeless Child being able to regenerate over and over again until Tatooine got it right essentially means is essentially a means to an end to create the fable or euphemism to tell the children about the history of how Gallifreyans got the ability to regenerate. The whole idea of having a story attached to the concept of the other throwing themselves, sacrificing themselves to the loom from which Time Lords were created sounds like mythology. A mythology to tell curious children that sounds a lot better than, yeah, kid, we just took this lost kid off the planet, brought him back here, and then when we found out there might be a way, something we can take from them, we just kept killing them over and over again until we figured it out without knowing or caring what effect it would have on that child. Sleep tight. So are you getting it yet? Okay, so if you aren't, let's face it, this shit is complex, okay? Let me layman's terms this bitch for you. The whole story about about it in the Remembrance of the Daleks and expanded upon in the novelization about the three founders of Time Lord Society is actually a mythos story told to hide what the Gallifreyans really did to the other / Timeless Child / the Doctor. Okay, got it? Great. Now, the questions. The major one being, why didn't the Doctor know? Simple. Mind wiping. Induced memory loss. See, the story was brought up in series 12 of New Who, which was most recent season of the Irish policeman that had his memory wiped. No memory, then a regeneration, and whoever is there to chalk it up to a memory loss from is there to chalk it up to a memory loss from a rough regeneration. The doctors then have memories and goes on with their day, but then someone starts catching on. That's where we find Joe Martin. This, I believe, is the regeneration where the Doctor catches on and starts going into hiding. And they are looking for her. Why? To wipe her brain. Because there are limits of regenerations, and we cannot have the secret getting out. Or they cannot have the idea of her being the only one allowed to regenerate limitlessly getting out. The idea of making the Doctor stay in the dark about this ability probably has a few reasons. One of which probably involved making sure that the Doctor can be kept in check for varying reasons. I am sure one of them being that the need of Raslin for power and greed. That's a whole nother video for a whole nother time, Raslin. So, this would be why, excuse me, there would be the need for Love from Gallifrey in Time of the Doctor, which was the Matt Smith regeneration episode. He obviously still didn't know that he was the timeless child because he thought he was at the end of his regeneration cycle. So, the Doctor goes along his merry way now with actor Peter Capaldi at the helm, none the wiser, but trying the whole time to find where he hid Gallifrey to end the Time War. But whoops, what we do end up finding out, while the Doctor is looking for Gallifrey, they were looking for him as well. Well, why is that? Well, the Doctor was overdue for an induced memory wipe. That's why. So, thus we get the storyline of Face the Raven, Heaven Sent, and Hellbent, where me, not me personally, but the character from that season that was played wonderfully by Maisie Williams, and people she's working with are trying to get the Doctor's attention to bring him back, haul him back more like, and in that process his best friend and companion Clara gets killed. There's more to the story, but another time. So, he ends up in this puzzle of a prison that's more like a labyrinth to wear him down, so he will go without a fight. Finally, he gets through, and on the other side, it's Gallifrey. The fuckers. Okay, so they wanted the Doctor so bad for something that they were willing to do anything to get him there. But it never really comes to fruition because he escapes. Woohoo! Before they have a chance to wipe the Doctor's mind of everything, the only thing that gets wiped is his memory of Clara. He remembers her, but he also doesn't at the same time. Very sad. Another story, another moment for another time. We're not talking about Clara this week. But all this is a stretch, and I'm willing to admit it. I do have something to say in my defense. It's Doctor Who. It's all timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. And most of the time, these little eggs are planted with varying gestation periods, which means most of the time, there are things that you don't entirely get for years until you finally get them, and that's the beauty of it. But let me tell you about something that's not a stretch. I love it when I get the fucking receipts and quotes, because that, my friends, is what brings all this shit home. I mean, yes. How do you explain the Doctor stealing a TARDIS twice? Except to say, it was there, and it was the best way to make a getaway from Gallifrey, where it'd be hard for them to find you. Duh. I mean, I'd be willing to steal a TARDIS more than once. It'd just be, that's what's there. That's how you're getting the fuck out. Think about it. Joe Martin steals a TARDIS, goes to Great Britain, ends up becoming a TARDIS. Who cares? She steals it because she wants to get away, because she's figured shit out. So she steals a TARDIS and she leaves with it. And then, you know what? William Hartnell's Doctor finds Susan, figures out this is kind of weird, steals a TARDIS to get the fuck out. It's not that much of a stretch when you really think about it. The reason why the TARDIS was stolen more than once is because, 1, it was convenient, and 2, it was the best idea. It was the best idea to steal a TARDIS. Both times. All this speculation and the connect the dots to make a pretty little picture of a TARDIS until this moment. And if it pleases the court, I would like to present you with Exhibit 4. I don't know how many I've actually presented here, but I say this as my kicker because it happened from the run of the 4th Doctor, Tom motherfucking Baker, and the brain of Morbius. Alright, we're going to set up the kick right now. We're going to set it up, and I'm going to tell you right now about the brain of Morbius. Okay, so there's a scene during Tom Baker's run of the Brain of Morbius episode in which the Doctor challenges Morbius to a mind-bending contest, whatever that means. And he does explain it to Sarah Jane. But oh well, whatever. That's not what's important. When the Doctor and Morbius put themselves on the mind-bending machine, Morbius keeps talking and asking, "How many lives have you lived, Doctor?" And you start seeing the screen past versions of the Doctor. You see images of John Pertwee, Patrick Troughton, and William Hartnell, but then you start seeing other faces, like a bunch of different faces after, and it's going back after you see William Hartnell. So what's that? Well, what does it mean? You know, I did say I had quotes. Yeah, baby. I got quotes. My quote comes from Philip Hinchcliffe. And for those of you that do not know how to read the fabric of space and time, or Google, Philip here was born... Hey, guys, he was born October 1st. That's my birthday. Yeah! Alright. Okay, Libra power. Was producer of Doctor Who from 1974 to 1977. He served as the producer during Tom Baker's first 3 seasons as the 4th Doctor. He also novelized 3 stories for Target Books. Excuse me. In Lance Parkin's A History of the Universe, Philip Hinchcliffe stated, quote, "We tried to get famous actors for the faces of the Doctor because nobody would volunteer. We had to use backroom boys. And it is true to say that I attempted to imply that William Hartnell was not the first Doctor." Touchdown! What does this tell us? I think you know what it tells us. It's been a part of Doctor Who mythos and canon that the possibility exists that William Hartnell's incarnation of the first Doctor was not the first Doctor. Please, guys, if you don't believe this idea existed still and aren't buying it, that's fine. But I ask you to take a moment and examine why you're not buying it. Just a moment. Think about it. Why are you not? Just for any reason. Why are you being presented with this information and still not buying it? Why? Because in the beginning, Doctor Who plot lines were not that deep. They weren't that contrived because, honestly, they didn't know what they had there. This is back in 1963. It was a child's show. It was a kid's show on in the afternoon that barely got off the ground. See An Adventure of Time and Space movie that tells you about the early days of Doctor Who and how that all went down. Once they came up with the concept of regeneration and it worked, they now had a unique opportunity that other shows didn't have to think past season to season and think in terms of regeneration to regeneration, decade to decade. I mean, this thing has been going on off and on since 1963. How many times since then has the Doctor thought they knew exactly what they knew, only to have the rug pulled out from underneath them yet again? See also the 50th anniversary special where the Doctor doesn't actually blow up Gallifrey to end the Time War. After believing for most of three regenerations that he had. Authors intent on writing and publishing a series of books to tell a prolonged story have to pitch their story for publication in a way that would give the basis of their entire storyline mapped out, no matter how many years or even decades it takes them to write the entire story, no matter how many times they alter the original plan. Just ask George R.R. Martin. Then ask him for the 5 people that probably still care where the fuck Winds of Winter is. What I'm saying is that it is completely logical that producers and writers of Doctor Who have a long game. Like, here is the destination. Now have fun getting there. And the Timeless Child is just one of those destinations. No one retconned anything. It was the plan all along, in my humble opinion. There you have it. The defense of the Timeless Child storyline of Doctor Who. But you know what's great about science fiction fantasy? You can totally have your own headcanon. And that's completely fine. Maybe you don't buy the Timeless Child and you think the Master was playing a cruel joke on the Doctor. It's not outside the realm of possibility here. I mean, think about the relationship between the Doctor and the Master. That is some tragic, toxic shit. Okay? Seriously. I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility to think that the Master was just playing a cruel joke on the Doctor to kind of cover up what he had done. Involving killing basically all of the Gallifreyans, all the Time Lords, and turning them into Cybermen, which is what he did. It's not like anyone's there to answer him. It's not like anyone's there to, like, oh, the Master told me this, what really happened? No, there's nobody there to do that. So there's always the possibility that the Master is just playing a cruel joke on the Doctor. Maybe you want to ignore the whole season 12, and that's fine. Really. I mean, we all have used headcanon from time to time to explain things for ourselves. Like, for instance, I used a bit of headcanon to get through Star Wars Rise of Skywalker by thinking the reason Ben Solo didn't appear in the last Force vision of Luke and Leia was because he was on the toilet at the time and running late. You can do it however you want. Just make sure you aren't gatekeeping or shitting on someone else's canon just because you have to be right. That's a problem with fandom. Shitting on someone's headcanon just because you have to be right. God, stop being gatekeepers out there. Start letting people understand and appreciate and love things for what they are. Love Doctor Who for what it is. Love all these things for what it is. And just enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, that's fine. Don't fuck with people that do. Don't fuck with the actors that do the show. Don't fuck with the writers that write the show, whether you like them or not. I mean, Doctor Who has been around since 1963. Just because you don't like the fact that the Doctor is now all of a sudden a woman, or you don't like something or other, you think that Doctor Who is suddenly political. Doctor Who has always been political, by the way. So don't do that. Stop being toxic. Stop being a toxic fanboy or fangirl or whatever. Toxic fandoms need to stop. You don't like it, don't watch it. You don't like it, don't listen to it. You don't like it, don't read it. That's me on my soapbox. Because I love Doctor Who. And I love that it keeps me guessing. And sometimes, most of the time, I am not right. Think about it. Think about how many times we have anyone that wants to put out you know, ideas of what they think the Doctor is, and all that, and things happening in the show, and think about how many times we have all sat there and been bloody fucking wrong. It's fun. And then you see what actually happens. And it's still fun. So that's it for the show. I hope you have enjoyed my defense of the Timeless Child storyline of Doctor Who. Until next time, take care of each other. Get your vaccine plan. Get stabbed in the arm for science, for crying out loud, and dream a bit. Read and geek out all over the place. I am Carrie Quinn, and this has been the officially unofficial Geek podcast. All of time and space. Where do you want to start? Bye.